And with that, the stage is set for us to begin with a ministerial panel discussion. Now, as AI reshapes economies and societies, ASEAN is moving toward a coordinated approach to governance, safety, and trust. And our first panel for today will explore how national strategies are being translated into practical frameworks across the region. Allow me to introduce a moderator for this session. Let's put our hands together for Freda Liu, broadcast journalist, and our distinguished panelists, Yang Berhormat Gobind Singh Dio, Minister of Digital Malaysia, Yang Berhormat Pengiran Dato Seri Setia Shamhary, Minister of Transport and Infocommunications, Brunei Darussalam, and His Excellency Chea Vandeth, Minister of Post and Telecommunications, Cambodia. Yang Berhormat, Excellencies, we'd like to welcome you to the stage.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much. This is an honor to be speaking to all the ministers here. Maybe what we'll do is we'll get an idea of what's happening across the different countries. We'll start with Malaysia, YB. So Malaysia is currently developing the AI Action Plan 2030. How is Malaysia translating the national AI framework into tangible use cases across sectors?
Thank you very much. We are looking at AI, which is technology that's going to impact on all sectors. Now let me just give you a bit of context here. And this is something I state quite often. When we look at it from an industry perspective, then the tendency is for us to have this overarching vision of how this AI will impact on industries. But from a government perspective, and I think the ministers here will acknowledge this as well, every government has got ministries that deal with individual sectors. So you've got the Ministry of Transport that deal with problems relating to transport. They are the ones that engage with the industry when it comes to issues related to transport, health, and what have you not. So you find that a lot of the initiatives that the ministries look at are initiatives which are sector-specific. So when you talk about data, data is collated, digitized, and used for problems within that particular sector from a ministry perspective. What we need to do is understand that AI stretches across all ministries. And that's the reason why the Ministry of Digital is slightly different. The Ministry of Digital is supposed to look at how it is we can bring all of this together. So how do you make sure that solutions that one particular sector needs can be used across all sectors? If you're able to understand and appreciate how that is done, then you're going to see the real impact of AI. Technology that allows integration of different solutions from different ministries that ultimately makes things a lot more efficient for people. A simple example, when you speak about health care and ambulances and hospitals, you have the data about hospitals, you have the data of ambulances. If you also have data from the Ministry of Transport, then you know exactly which routes can be used, how efficient, those routes would be in terms of getting patients to hospital, and you can actually bring all of it together. That's just a very simple example. If you take that at a more macro level, then you understand how data can be used to create solutions that are solutions across the board, and ultimately that is what benefits people. But there's a lot of work to do. So it really is a question of how it is you're able to build infrastructure, make sure that you're able to collect, digitize the data that's necessary. You must have the compute power, which requires resources, expertise, and ultimately you must ensure that layers of security are also involved in the solutions that you build, and you must get people to come along. So this is why the Ministry of Digital, when you look at the national AI roadmap of 26 to 30, it's really been about speaking to different people, getting ideas from industries, at industry level, government level. We also speak to academia. We want to understand how it is they look at things, and shape policies that will actually support what it is they want to do moving ahead. So it's basically looking at every single sector, understanding that you need to have a clear vision in terms of how data is to be used for problems that will present themselves, making sure that that technology exists so that we can actually build these solutions, making sure that we have a pool of talent that are able to actually tell us how we can actually build those solutions, also look towards what we need to deal with next so that we can prepare for it now. And I think that's where the policy aims to get Malaysia to. We want to build a policy that is going to prepare Malaysia not just for AI and the power of technology today, but also for the challenges that we foresee ahead to make sure that we are ready, we are AI ready as we go along.
And that's just Malaysia and how, I guess, ultimately that fits into the whole ASEAN perspective as well. We'll move on to Cambodia. His Excellency Chea. So Cambodia is also developing the national AI strategy. How is Cambodia aligning the strategy with national development priorities?
Thank you for the questions. We align our national strategy to AI strategy to a national development priority at 3 levels. First, our strategic priority are the government aligned with the government strategy. We prioritize people and infrastructure in our social economic development agenda. So strategic priority 1 in our national AI strategy focus on nurturing AI leaders, AI talents, AI-equipped professionals, and AI literate citizens. Priority 2 focus on increasing availability of data, computing, and crucial technology stack. Second, we align the strategy to overall digital transformations of the economy and society. Among the 3 players, digital government, digital citizen, and digital business, digital government is a task to lead by example. Therefore, strategic priority 3 focus on AI adoptions in public sector for efficiencies and better public service. Third, we align sectoral adoptions to national priorities. The government has identified healthcare, education, and agriculture are the 3 sectors for immediate attentions at the beginning of the mandate. So the national AI strategy also pushes for AI adoption in these sectors, which is articulated under strategic priority 4. Many joint applied research and adoption projects are already in place, and we are developing more and more. Yes, for example, recently we initiated to develop the LLM, like Malaysia will be launched soon in this summit. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. We move on to Brunei, YB Pengiran Dato. So Brunei has introduced the AI Guide on AI Governance and Ethics for Brunei Darussalam. How is Brunei aligning its AI policy implementation with national development priorities?
Thank you, first of all, Freda. And at the onset, I would like to also congratulate Minister Gobind and the Ministry for organizing this successful and timely event. I think back to the question in terms of introducing the guidelines, I think we'd like to share that our main grounding principle is that technology, which includes AI, must serve our people, our values, and as you said, national development. And in terms of the Brunei Guide on governance of AI governance and ethics, the principal approach is still upheld, and where we say we are supportive of adoption of technology and innovation, and we do not want to stifle it, because when AI came on board, there was a lot of unknown, and the easy approach would be, hey, let's not, let's control it. But I think what the approach we've taken is we've embraced it, but at the same time said that there needs to be guardrails, and hence the establishment of the ethics and guidelines, which is aligned with the ASEAN Guide on AI Governance and Ethics as well. I think the rationale for aligning with ASEAN is, as was also mentioned by Mr. Gobind, we want to ensure alignment, interoperability in future, as well as how we can also participate in the ASEAN digital economy together. In terms of coming up with the guideline, in terms of governance, with Brunei, have also established the Digital Economic Council. So this Digital Economic Council is an evolution of what used to be called the Digital Economy Council. So this is a bit more broader. And the original plan, which comes to an end in 2025, is what we mentioned, a lot of focus on previously on connectivity, establishing data centers, establishing connectivity. Now we're moving on, when we move into the new plan, part of it, apart from focusing on now milking the connectivity, it's looking at how we embrace technology, which includes AI. So AI strategy is a component of the new Digital Brunei transformation plan. And indeed, as mentioned, similarly like Cambodia, it also covers digital government, digital industry businesses, as well as digital society. And in terms of where AI governance comes into play in terms of in the national context, we want to guide the implementation across all ministries. So again, ensuring that all ministries speak and on the same language, and to ensure that it's a whole of nation approach. And linked to this as well is that because we've also established that in our economic blueprint, ICT and services will contribute to, to the GDP. Up to 4% of our GDP we anticipate will contribute by the ICT and services sector. So the intent is that we want to improve public services, support SMEs, enhance digital skills, and obviously there are certain sectors which are sort of pathfinders, especially in the health sector, but it does extend to transport and education. And our opportunity also in the digital transformation plan is to explore how does Brunei can play in the whole AI supply chain. So whether we are just an AI consumer, or do we talk about localization, building language models, or are we a producer? So this is one of the things that we will be developing in our development transformation plan in terms of how do we position ourselves for the, and then how we can collectively ASEAN benefit in the whole value chain. So it is about inclusivity as well when we talk about development in AI within the ASEAN space. Thank you.
I have a soft spot for Brunei because I was born there, so that's so feels a bit like home. Right, you spoke about guardrails, right? And we're talking about strengthening AI safety and risk mitigation. So, YB Gobind, with the ever-evolving development of AI, what frameworks are being explored to ensure safe and ethical AI deployment in our country?
Thank you. The subject around AI governance is very important. We speak about AI, we know that AI can empower us, we know that there are huge benefits that all of us can extract from it, and we are focused on that. And I think rightly so, because ultimately if there's technology that can help, then I think it is important for us to see how it is we can employ the technology and that it can ultimately build our nation moving ahead. But this is an area that is slightly different. It is something which is evolving very quickly, and we know that there are areas that you need to be concerned about as you deploy solutions around AI. Let's have a look at certain pillars. Let's take data, for example. You want to make sure that when data is used across different sectors for solutions, that there's security, there's privacy. You also want to make sure that when there is a request for data from a particular agency, there is a structure in place that provides a process where you can determine the request, you decide whether or not that requests should be allowed. And in this, you also check to ensure that the agency that's requesting for that data has got sufficient safeguards in place so that when that data is actually transferred to the agency, then you know that it's secure. So it's really about building structures. As I said in my speech earlier, the conversations, I think, are plenty. Most of the people here, we sit in summits, we sit in events like this, and we understand the problem. But from a government perspective, how do you actually create structures that look into this? So what we did was in December of last year, we tabled the Data Sharing Act, right? And it went through in January of this year, came into force in April. Now, one of the things that that act does is it provides a structure by which a request can be made for data to be shared. Now, in this process, we realized that the problem was a lot bigger than we anticipated, because you start looking at data, then you realize that a lot of the data is not even digital yet. So then the whole question of how do you actually digitize the data that you have. A lot of data that you have is still in analog form. It's still written, it's audio, it's still visual. So how do you digitize all of it? How do you prioritize? As Minister Chea said earlier, I think he's right. There's so much data out there. You know the problems that you need to solve using data. You need to know where you can get that data from. So it's a question of priorities. So when it comes to this, what are the standards applicable? And who's going to decide those standards? Are those standards going to be standards that are peculiar to us in Malaysia alone? Or are they going to be standards that we talk about so that there's interoperability, standards that are commonly accepted in Brunei, in Cambodia, in Singapore, Timor-Leste, so that ultimately when we build products along those standards, then these products are products that are acceptable across the ASEAN region. So who's going to decide that? And ultimately, the question of enforcement. You want to make sure that if there are standards, then those standards are followed, because otherwise you have standards, and there's no one who's going to decide whether or not those standards have been complied with. So this is why this whole question of governance, this whole question of privacy, this whole question of cybersecurity becomes important. And this is where the digital trust and data security strategy is key. The conversations that we have with industry, I think everybody understands the depth of the problem. We are in a race. All of us are trying to adopt new technology as fast as we possibly can. But there is a need for us to also take a step back and understand that while we look at all this, we must also build an ecosystem that provides trust so that people can use platforms knowing that there is this thinking that has gone behind how it is that data is going to be used, how it is when they actually come onto online platforms, they are secure. And in the event there is a problem, then there are structures in place that deals with those problems efficiently and quickly. We all listen daily about scams, for example. And when you have scams, governments talk about scams. We speak about them often. But to the real person who's a victim of the scam, he wants to have clarity.
Right.
What does he need to do when there is a problem? Where does he need to go? Who does he need to speak to? How fast can the problem be solved? If it involves money flowing out of his account, how fast can you actually stop that so that the problem does not escalate? So it's really about creating systems that work, given the kind of challenges that you see with AI, which are quite different from challenges before. You have to think about pivoting from provisions of the past to digital provisions that will solve digital problems of today. So governance, again, to conclude, I think is divided into 4 areas. You're going to have solutions or products that do not need governance. Then you're going to have problems. You're going to have products that will require governance, but not to the point of legislation. Standards are sufficient. Yeah? So Amandeep earlier, we heard from the UN, he spoke about how it is they are looking at common standards that can be applied across the globe. Yeah? So those are standards. Then ultimately you will have the third category, which will require more than standards, but not legislation. So we're looking at regulation, regulatory processes, which will apply to different sectors, because different sectors will have different demands. And ultimately, there will be that one area that you will need to somehow have legislative provisions in place. Areas that impact on national security, for example, where people, if they're actually moving into those areas, notification must be given to government, then there must be a process by which we can ensure that what it is that is being built is safe, and we are able to look into how it is we can strengthen ourselves using the government structures in place. So Malaysia is looking at that. We have got the Cybersecurity Act that was passed last year. in January. We have the Data Sharing Act that has come into force this year. We strengthened the Personal Data Protection Act in the middle of last year. We are now in the process of looking at what we call AI governance in itself, legislation, but that perhaps towards the end of next year, or middle of next year, sorry. But that's where I see governance moving in terms of AI, Freda. Thank you.
Thank you, IB. And every country will have his different challenges. Your Excellency, Chea, what are the key concerns around AI safety in Cambodia's emerging sectors?
At this stage, social risks of AI are a high concern in Cambodia. The potential rise of deepfakes and other AI-assisted disinformation and misinformation incidents need to be tackled proactively in collaborative manner. The second area of concern is the breach of privacy and confidentiality, due in part of lack understanding at the early stage of adoptions. There is an urgent need to explain to the people what should and what should not be included or uploaded in their prompt to prevent information leak. There is also a need to clearly communicate different choices of usage that can protect sensitive information of individuals and companies. Finally, there is an urgent need for contextualized understanding of safety risk in key areas of adoptions, such as healthcare, finance, education, and cybersecurity. Technical risks such as bias, reliability, and robustness issue can only be understood in context, and the professionals of various sectors need a very contextualized understanding of these technical risks in order to adopt appropriate mitigation measures. We continue to work across institutionally on this issue. There are the key safety concerns, and Cambodia is improving its existing mechanism, which can be augmented and supplemented to address evolving risks. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. What about Brunei, YB Pengiran Dato? What's happening?
No, so in terms of our approach on AI risks and guidelines on ethical codes, again, we don't stray from our principle of how technology serves our people, our values, and our national development. But core towards it is also about sovereignty. So this is where, in terms of the deployment and development of AI, we do need to safeguard national decision-making. We need to also protect our cultural identity and maintain control over data, systems, and our capability, as this is underpins our economic and societal needs. Our approach is also to build earned trust. This is against AI errors, biases, or any misuse of the technology. So important for this is to promote transparency and attribution in the generated content of AI, and ensuring there is data privacy and protection. So again, this talks about standards that we need to adhere with and ensure it's being complied with. And importantly, like it or not, even though it's technology, we still need human oversight and autonomy. So this is where we see AI as a human augmentation to enhance productivity, not necessarily to replace it. And as technology transcends borders, we do need to, we also focus on regional and international collaboration. And this is where we do support ASEAN's initiatives in terms of the AI safety safeguards and governance. We also would like to foster trust and inclusion, where we facilitate AI development while safeguarding sovereignty, but also national interest. But how do we make it an inclusive initiative going forward within the ASEAN space?
Thank you. Since we've got most of the ASEAN ministers here represented, we're talking about now cross-border data governance and alignment, right? How can Malaysia align its data governance frameworks with ASEAN-wide interoperability efforts? What can we do, YB?
It comes back again to us looking at standards that are common to all nations. I think ultimately that's what we want to. That's where we want to get. We want to have conversations to understand. Number one, the requirements and circumstances of each country will differ. So I think there's the need for all of us to respect that, and this is why we have these conversations. Ultimately, if you are able to identify what standards each country looks at as being priorities insofar as they're concerned, then it's a question of looking for common ground. How it is you are going to be able to say that, look, these standards are applicable to all nations in the ASEAN region, so why don't you start looking at these common standards which are interoperable. Technology will lead. When you start looking at standards, you're looking at technology, the kind of technology that these standards will be applicable to. And I think it really comes back down to the ASEAN group sitting together, identifying those key areas, looking at the common ground, and then trying to build a document that will actually be able to reflect on standards which all of us agree to, and how it would be interoperable, and most importantly, the oversight process. To make sure that whilst you have standards, you speak about standards, you're also in a position to ensure that there's some level of enforcement to make sure that these standards are met. And it's, this is a process that's alive, because as you go along, new technology is going to evolve and emerge. You're going to have to start, the conversation has to keep going about what new standards would apply with new technology. And I think this is a process where you look at ASEAN playing a leading role, because as you go ahead, we have the benefit of learning from each other. Different countries that look at different standards, different challenges, speak about different standards that are applicable to overcome those challenges. And I think this is where we can learn from each other, and if we put our minds together, I think that's where the real strength of ASEAN is.
Your Excellency, Chair, what regulatory foundations are needed to support Cambodia's participation in regional AI ecosystems?
First, we think that the data protection and cyber security rule is a must. Cambodia have finished drafting the consulting and on these two draft laws, and we are on track to adopting these legislations. The next step would be to operationalize their implementations in various sectors. Second, a strong data governance culture must be initiated and sustained to allow for trusted cloud adoptions, which will open a broader path to AI adoptions and interoperable governance of AI. Cambodia has finished both draft cloud first policy with input from international and domestic cloud service provider, and draft data governance policy, which is undergoing a deep dive workshop at the current state. These concurrent efforts aim to expedite foundation building. We also prepare national AI governance framework, which bring AI governance and ethics principle and other related tools into a unified framework to facilitate coordination and adoption among various sectors. We have already disseminated the two ASEAN guide broadly to the industry via workshop, and we aim to build on this momentum. And I think that Malaysia have developed more advanced in AI, and Cambodia can learn a lot from Malaysia, and a good cooperation between Malaysia and Cambodia so far. We hope that we will benefit from these cooperations. Cambodia has actively engaged in regional discussions with the multi-pronged approach. Cambodia stands prepared to elevate our engagement in a high level, especially with our friends, ASEAN member states. Yeah. Thank you.
And from Brunei, how can Brunei's logistics and transport sectors benefit from regionally aligned data policies?
So I think starting off, where Minister Gobind mentioned in terms of adoption of the technology like AI transcends various sectors, ministries. This is one example where my ministry is also pushing the AI agenda, digital, but also responsible for transport and logistics. So the sector is pivotal in our economic development, where even earmark that for the sector to contribute towards 10% of our GDP in the future. So this is where efficiency, competitiveness, and through innovation, digitalization, and regional integration comes into play. And good example in terms of data, the implementation of simple projects like the Maritime Single Window enables easier access to data, exchange of data between companies, shipping companies, and authorities. So this facilitates efficiency. And in terms of the attractiveness to Brunei is that it becomes attractive for us to become a player in the region as a transshipment hub and so forth. However, at the same time, we also want to align ourselves with the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, which calls for unified digital ecosystem, the facilitation of cross-border data flow, so to enhance supply chain transparency, operational efficiency. So Brunei's interest is into enhanced efficiency, access to regional markets. And this is where ASEAN centrality and inclusivity in terms of promoting growth together comes into play. So it can only help us if we do align together and to facilitate transfers of data in a governed and safe manner.
I've got two more questions, and this is a bit about future outlook and ASEAN leadership. Right? I'm going to ask with YB first, right? How can ASEAN, as together, be a credible voice in global AI governance, especially with major frameworks emerging in the EU, US, and China? How do you think ASEAN can work together?
If we look at the global economy, we understand the context a bit better. Individually, for example, Malaysia, 33, 34 million people, yes, reasonably a big economy, and there's a lot of potential that you find available here in this country. But if you're able to look at it from a larger perspective, the ASEAN group coming together as an economic powerhouse in this region, providing an impact globally. You're looking at a market of 700 million people, more or less. And of course, it's going to expand as you go along. As the minister said earlier, if you're able to look at agreements or frameworks which facilitate trade, reduce barriers, and I think that's what technology does. Ultimately, you're going to be able to see the economy of ASEAN grow. And if ASEAN is able to succeed economically, all its member states benefit. Everyone benefits. Globally, you're going to see that ripple effect that will impact upon countries around the world as well. So it's about ASEAN projecting how it is we can work together, how it is we are able to look at strategies, frameworks that provide real solutions in transforming us digitally so that we can actually see the impact of new technology and how it is we operate. These are events which allow that to happen. I would like to say this, in the last 18 months, I've been to many of the countries, Cambodia, I have friends in Brunei. We've been speaking about this. How do we facilitate this and do it fast? Because technology is moving quickly, and I think that's the real challenge. But I'm very, very certain that we will get it done. I'm confident with the leadership that we see with ASEAN. There is huge potential. And if we get it right, you're going to see how it is ASEAN grows to become, as I said, that economic powerhouse that will be able to transform not just the economy, but society, and also how it is governance translates in this region.
Your Excellency, Chea, anything to add?
Yes, if we look at US, China, EU, and ASEAN, we have different approach. ASEAN, we have AI-driven principle-based approach. And EU, they have a human rights driven approach. US, market-driving approach, and China, more centralized driving approach. So with 4 different regions or economic power, we can say that ASEAN adopt more soft approach that can be flexible to cooperate and to adopt any approach from different regions. Yeah, so, and we are ASEAN, as Minister Gobind said, we have almost 700 million people. So we have a kind of powerful regions to develop AI, to adopt AI for not only our region, for the world as well. Thank you.
For Brunei.
No, I think latching on what Minister Gobind mentioned in terms of the insular development. So we can leverage on individual strength, and collectively, the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the individuals. So I think that's one of the approach in terms of where the strength of ASEAN comes into play. And as mentioned by Mrs. In terms of within ASEAN also, we have various leverage or relationships with other regions, which individual countries may have different strengths in terms of their relationships, which we can all leverage again together. So I think that's the opportunity in terms of the diversity within ASEAN. There's opportunity to leverage on it to become, because our approach is more in terms of diplomacy, consensus. I think in that sense, we could leverage on that in terms of moving forward. But together as a voice, when we align ourselves, I think it's a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you. Maybe YB Gobind, I'll get you to conclude as ASEAN Chair as well, right? What do you hope to achieve as ASEAN Chair in this AI governance this year?
Thank you. The focus is on how it is we can ensure that we understand how AI is going to transform everything. We recognize the fact that there is a need, an urgent need for all countries to acknowledge that there is a lot to do to build local ecosystems so that we can prepare ourselves for that technology. While we do this, we are going to recognize also that there are certain sectors that will move ahead faster than others. Some sectors are not as connected as others. Therefore, they do not have access to new technology. There are some sectors that are not going to be trained to adopt AI, as a result of which they could be left behind. These are things that we need to look at. The divide there is critical. Discussions need to take place now. The reason why we need to discuss this now is to make sure that whilst we build this ecosystem, we understand what we need to do. We are sure about how it is we craft policies, how it is we build strategies, frameworks regionally, so that we get it right from the start. And I think there's tremendous potential in what we see with AI moving ahead. We just need to make sure that all of us collaborate, understand how it is different countries have different challenges, so that we can actually bring all of it together and succeed as one. So this is the reason why we have this summit, and I think this summit is very important because it provides a platform for government to also listen to industry. And I want to tell industry here that we're open to suggestions. We need you to also work with us so that we can create policies that are beneficial to all. And this is the reason why we encourage discussions and a summit like this.
Thank you, YB. So thank you to the ministers for sharing your vision and steps to advancing AI governance in ASEAN. So today's conversation made clear that moving from policy to practice will require alignment across borders, data policies and governance frameworks, trust built on strong AI safety and ethics industry, and collaboration between governments, industry and community. So on that note, thank you very much to the ministers, and a round of applause for our ministers, and I'll pass back to MC.
Thank you once again, Freda, for moderating the session. Once again to our esteemed panelists. And thank you, YB. Thank you to our honorable ministers on stage as well. Just a quick photo opportunity as we wrap up this session. And thank you once again to our panelists for sharing with us your thoughts on how regional cooperation and clear governance frameworks are truly essential for building a trusted AI ecosystem. And of course, from what we've heard, the message is clear. AI's potential can only be realized when it's anchored in safety, inclusivity, and shared purpose. So once again, thank you very much, YB Gobind Singh Dio, Yang Berhormat Pengiran Dato Seri Setia Shamhary, and His Excellency Chea Vandeth, for truly an engaging session to kick off this morning's summit.